Have you ever noticed how easily you approve investments for everyone else in your life, your kids, your spouse, your business, but the moment the investment is for you, suddenly it feels complicated? I want to tell you something that happened in my own house. I've been running the back end of my husband's medical practice for years. I know what things cost. I know how to read a balance sheet. I know how to look at an expenditure and evaluate whether it makes sense. So when I started thinking seriously about getting certified as a life coach, a real certification, a real program, a real investment, I did what any former CPA would do. I built a spreadsheet, multiple tabs, cost comparisons, timeline scenarios. I ran the numbers like I used to do when I was a CPA. I looked at the costs, I looked at the time commitment, I ran the numbers, and then I sat there and found every possible reason why the timing wasn't right, why I should wait, why it was too much, why I should research more options first. And meanwhile, that same week, I had signed off on a piece of medical equipment for the practice without blinking, a real number, a significant number. I didn't build a spreadsheet for that. I didn't wonder if the timing was right. It was a business need. So we handled it. The difference between those two decisions had nothing to do with money. It had everything to do with what I believe I was worth investing in. Welcome to the Joy Shift. I'm Kylie Suarez. And today we're going to talk about the pattern I call the worth wound and why the smartest, most financially capable women I know are often the worst at investing in themselves. If you're new here, welcome. This is a podcast for women who have built successful, responsible lives, careers, families, businesses, and quietly feel like something inside them is still unfinished. Not because you're ungrateful, because you're not done. If you've been with me for a while, we've been on a journey together. Permission, identity, being witnessed. And today we're going to go deeper into something that underlies all of it. Because here's what I notice in my own life and in the women I work with. You can do all the inner work. You can give yourself permission. You can name your identity archaeology. You can build your witnesses. And still, when the moment comes to actually invest in your own becoming with real money, real time, real commitment, something stops you. Today, we're naming that something. Let me paint you a picture. See if any of this sounds familiar. You will spend a fortune on your child's college education without flinching. You will invest in your home, your business, your spouse's career, your aging parents' care. You will pay for every lesson, every trip, every upgrade, as long as it's for someone else. But when it comes to you, a coaching program, a creative course, a retreat, a certification, something that is purely and specifically for your own growth, suddenly you need to think about it. Suddenly, the timing isn't quite right. Suddenly, you need to do more research first. This is not a budget problem. I know this because I spent years as a CPA and now run the operations of a medical practice. I understand money. I understand how financial decisions actually get made. And what I can tell you from both sides of this equation, as someone who managed the numbers professionally and someone who still runs the operations of a medical practice, is that the math is almost never the real reason. The real reason runs deeper. Today, we're talking about something I see constantly in midlife reinvention for women over 40. A pattern I call the worth wound. The worth wound is the invisible belief, usually built over decades, that your growth is optional, that your development is a luxury, that investing in yourself is something you get to do after everyone else is taken care of, or after the business is solid, after the kids are launched, after things settle down. Spoiler, they never settle down. The moment never comes because the worth wound isn't waiting for your circumstances to change. It's waiting for you to believe you deserve it first. Here's the thing about high achieving women. We learned something very early and we learned it very well. We learned that our value is in our output, our usefulness, our ability to keep everything running. We get rewarded for producing, for good grades, for successful careers, for being reliable, for never being a burden, for always being the one who handles things. And so we built our sense of worth on that foundation. I matter because I'm capable. I deserve good things because I've earned them. I get to want things only after I've done enough. This works incredibly well for a while. It produces high achievers. It produces competent, capable, impressive women. And then midlife arrives. And the question changes because in midlife, we stop asking, what can I produce? And we start quietly asking, who am I? And that question doesn't have a deliverable attached to it. It doesn't generate ROI, which again is return on investment. It doesn't make anyone else's life easier. And for a woman whose entire sense of worth has been built on output, that question feels profoundly unsafe to invest in. I live this so specifically. I published 5 romance novels. I was publishing romance novels under a pen name. I still do. And while people were reading them, almost no one knew in real life they were mine. And I want to ask you something about that. Why do you think I used a pen name? Part of it was wanting to protect my professional life, sure. But the deeper truth, I didn't believe I had earned the right to want this publicly. Writing romance novels didn't serve the practice. It didn't help my husband's patience. It didn't make me more useful to anyone. It just made me feel alive. And I had a very hard time believing that was worth investing in. That's the worth wound right there. I want to talk about what this actually costs, not emotionally. We can feel that. I mean, specifically, concretely, because I think sometimes we need to look at the real math. When a woman with the worth wound doesn't invest in her own growth, here's what tends to happen. She researches forever and decides nothing. She downloads every free resource. She listens to every podcast. Hi again, and reads every book. And she says she's in a holding pattern and feels like preparation. But actually, it's a very sophisticated form of feeling safe. She undercharges for her work. I see this constantly. Women who are talented, skilled, credentialed, charging a fraction what their male counterparts charge. Not because they don't want the market rate, because they don't fully believe their own value. She waits to be chosen instead of choosing herself, the promotion, the opportunity, the moment someone finally recognizes what she's capable of. She waits because investing in herself loudly, unapologetically, without permission, feels arrogant, selfish, and unearned. And she defers the life she actually wants until after the kids are grown, after the business is more stable, after things slow down, after she's done enough to deserve it. Meanwhile, her own life continues. Here's the thing I want to say very directly, because I think we sometimes soften this too much. The worth wound is not a quirk. It is not a personality trait. It is a pattern that keeps capable women small. And it does it quietly, logically, and very reasonable sounding voice that says things like, it's just not the right time. So, what do we do with this? First, I want you to just sit with the possibility that investing in yourself is not selfish. I know you've heard that before, but I want to say it with a very specific lens from a pure financial perspective, which is, after all, where I spent my career, the highest returning investment you can make is in your own capacity, your clarity, your confidence, your ability to show up as the fullest version of yourself in your relationships, your work, and whatever you are building next. Every other investment you make in your home, in your business, in your children's education is being made by a version of you that may or may not be operating at a full capacity. When you underinvest in yourself, you underperform in everything else. That's not an emotional argument. That's just math. And second, I want you to notice the double standard. The next time you hesitate to invest in your own growth, I want you to ask, would I apply this same standard to the people I love? Would I tell my daughter to research endlessly and decide nothing? Would I tell my best friend she needs to wait until things are more settled before she deserves to grow? You wouldn't, because you can see their worth clearly. The worth wound makes it very hard to see your own. And this is the one that changed everything for me personally. I had to get honest about what staying stuck was giving me. As long as I kept my writing a secret, I never had to find out if it was good enough. As long as I didn't pursue coaching, I never had to find out if I could build something on my own. As long as I kept managing the practice and calling that enough, I never had to take the risk of being fully seen in the things that mattered most to me. Not investing in yourself keeps the dream safe. It stays perfect inside your head where no one can judge it and it can never fail. The problem is it also never becomes real. Here's what I want you to do with this. Not a big thing, just one small, honest moment. I want you to think of one thing you've been putting off investing in for yourself specifically, not for your family, not for your business, for you and your becoming, because it's a program, a class, a coach, a creative pursuit, a retreat. Maybe it's just carving out consistent time and treating that time as non-negotiable, the way you would treat any other important appointment. I want you to ask yourself honestly, what's the real reason I haven't done it? Not the logistical reason, the real one. Because if the answer has anything to do with that, being sure you deserve it, not being sure you've done enough to earn it, not being sure this is a good use of resources, specifically when those resources are for you, that's the worth wound talking. And that is information worth sitting with. I'm going to say something I believe deeply. The women who change the trajectory of their lives are not the ones who finally got the timing right. They are not the ones who waited until everything was in order. They are the ones who decided before they felt ready, before the conditions were perfect, before they were completely sure that they were worth the investment. That decision is available to you, not someday, right now. I'll see you Friday. We're going to do something practical and a little uncomfortable, and we're going to look together at where the worth wound is actually showing up in your daily choices, not the big dramatic ones, the quiet everyday ones. And I think it's going to surprise you. Before you go, If this episode landed for you, will you share it with one woman who needs to hear it? Not because she's broken, because she's been investing in everyone else for so long, she's forgotten that she counts too. That's the Joy Shift. Here's what I have to say to keep the lawyers happy. The Joy Shift podcast with Kylie Suarez shares my personal views and the experiences of my guests. It's meant for inspiration and conversation, not medical, psychological, or financial advice. Everyone's situation is different. Before making any big changes in your life, please talk with your healthcare provider, mental health team, financial advisor, or another qualified professional. Take what resonates, leave the rest. Always choose what's best for you. See you Friday.